really don't like this dress. It's too hot. It doesn't fit right. Anyway, if you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Tidkemeyer. I wrote for Pathos for almost 10 years, a column called No Longer Quivering. It dealt with quiverful and evangelical religion. Now I'm doing this instead. I'm doing this online. Scoot up with my chair. I just wanted to say real quick, do all the YouTubey things if you want. Hit like, subscribe, whatever. I'd appreciate that. Hey, Michelle. The other thing is this is all my opinions. This is just my considered opinion from things I've done or I've worked with or understand. Don't bully anybody I'm going to talk about. Hey, Karma. And if you're going to leave a comment and you're going to leave me a nasty one, I'm just going to delete you. I'm using the same rules that we used in No Longer Quivering for the comments here. If you can say something useful, fine. If you say something shaming, blaming, rude, I'm just going to cut you out. So I'm just putting all this right up front because I don't want to hear it. Hey, Dances in the Rain. Hey, Bossy. Yeah. Hey, all you guys. It's been quite the 24, 48 hours, hasn't it? Or maybe a little more. There is very little that really gets my goat. Hey, Bossy. But what it is disability. When people who are not disabled in any way, shape, or form start trying to tell the disabled how they should feel about their disability and what they should do, it starts to get a little weird. I'm going to say that. And you know me, I've got my own bugaboo with being disabled. Hey, T King, my big one is when I go to a restroom in a business and there are like 7 or 8 stalls and the last one is handicapped. I have a difficult time with that because so many people will ignore the other stalls and try the handicap. For me, it's not a matter of it's more comfortable. Like a lot of people will tell me, well, it's more comfortable, it's bigger. That's not even the issue for me. I need the handrail sometimes. Not every single day, but there are days where my balance is so off. If I'm not hanging on to the handrail, I would fall down. Hey, Bossy. We've been having fun on Twitter together today. Yes, we have, because you got me started. You got me ranting about some of the things I'm going to talk about. So I saw a video where somebody said somebody was using a wheelchair and wasn't qualified for it because the person can walk. I don't even want to say who it was, who made the charge, or who the person is, because the person, I don't know them that well. I've seen some of their videos, but I just don't know them well enough. Here's the thing. I want to throw that out there. Being disabled takes place on a continuum. It's not like, okay, you're always doing this, you're always doing that. The problem with making fun of someone's access is a serious one. And just because someone can walk sometimes doesn't mean they're going to be able to walk every day. Some days it's going to be wheelchair city, and it's not for you to judge who it is and say they're faking because they don't use a wheelchair every single day of their lives. Most of us that have disability and our mobility issues, it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. It's not anything written in stone. I'm just going to come right out and say that. The bathroom is busy and there's a line. I'm okay with people using disabled bathrooms. But when they should say, they should see us and use, yeah, they should, but they don't always. I have people that will ignore all of the stalls and just go to the disabled when there's not a thing in this world wrong with them. And that always is discouraging because it is, if you're fooling with any mobility device, it becomes very difficult at that point. Putting stuff in the dryer. Okay, Bossy. Yeah, and this is about Welsh. I don't know Welsh, but I know her struggle. Like I said, there's times when if I'm at an airport, I have to be carted around a wheelchair because the floor is slick like glass and I have balance issues. I've fallen at the airport. there are days that I'm going to have to go between nothing to cane to wheelchair to walker. I mean, I just have those days. And so I'm actually kind of upset for Rose, well, for the Welsh Rose right now, because, like I said, it is a journey and we all have these different things. So her tormentor needs just to back off, back the F off. She's a lovely human and good people. She seems to be the things. Yes, yes, Karma Kid. That's exactly right. Nobody needs to judge that. And so you need to just be kind to people that are dealing with these things because, like I said, it's not the same every single day. Even with my asthma, it's different. You can have bad days, good days. Hey, Kathleen. Hey, Cheryl. So that's all I want to say about disabilities. Did everybody see that Meatloaf had died this morning? Maybe some of you are too young to really remember him or his music. For me, it was kind of a shock, and it was more of a shock when the Sun exposed that he had died of COVID and that he was an anti-vaxxer, anti-vaccine type. I couldn't believe that. He died of the virus within just a very short period of time that he was sick, apparently. So part of me is kind of horrified and going, how on earth can you have multiple health issues and be that obtuse about the likelihood of dying from this thing? I loved his music. I loved him in Rocky Horror. Thought he was hysterically funny as Eddie. Was it Eddie? It is sad. It's very sad. It broke my heart too, Cheryl. It was a hard one. Yeah, Karma Kid. That's exactly what it is. And it's been really sad for me. I've been listening to his music all day. I started following him in the mid 70s. Cheryl, same. I used to play his record, Bat Out of Hell. I mean, just relentlessly for years. It was one of my all-time favorites. Um, he was just so incredibly talented. I hate to see anybody be taken out by this hideous thing. Hey, small town Jewel. No telling why you're not. Just getting here. How are you today? Hope you're feeling well. Hello, chat. Hello, small town Jewel. I'm doing okay. Not great asthma, but some of it is on me. We went last night to this place called Sharky's here. Now, I didn't want to go. My husband drugged me there. The reason I didn't want to go to Sharky's is because the last time I was there, and it's been probably 3.5, 4 years, there was a drug dealer that kept leaning over into the outdoor dining area and saying, cocaine, cocaine, coca. He was also selling marijuana and heroin. And while I'm not, I believe that marijuana has its place, but cocaine and heroin, no. There's not much of a place for them. They used to use cocaine in this treatment where they would clean out your sinuses, but they don't do that anymore. And it's kind of sad because that does work for a couple of months. So not only was he offering that, he was offering my husband a prostitute while I'm sitting there. So I haven't been back to this place since then. I wrote them a nasty review when it happened because between the constant harassment by the drug pusher and the fact that the food was not good, it was just frozen and rehashed. Small town Jewel, I think it probably is. But here's the thing. I had bad asthma and Copae too. Copae to dote up in the mountains. It was cold. I told my husband, I think for me, I'm going to need to be up in the mountain. And if it's a mountain that overlooks the beach, so the better. So we're having that conversation now too. We're looking at that, trying to decide if we're going to do that, what it's going to look like, what the other house is going to look like, where we're going to get the money, all that sort of thing before we actually do that. I am best here in Costa Rica at a place called Atenas. It's apparently how Spanish says Athens. So it's a top of the mountain community. Doesn't overlook a beach, unfortunately. But when I go there, I can breathe all the way down to the bottom of my lungs. It's the greatest thing ever. I love Arnall, but I don't do well at Arnall all the time because if it's raining, the cloud cover pushes the volcanic smoke down and I start wheezing. So it is the asthma. I wore out 2 beta LLP. So did I, Cheryl. So did I. And there's only there's one song that I can't listen to though, because I had somebody I was madly in love with before my husband, and it was not my first husband. It's probably the only other time I've been in romantic love with anybody, and 2 out of 3 ain't bad could sum it up. And we used to listen to the album together. And he told me finally that he was never going to love me. And it was like every time I hear that song now, it's just like so sad. I think about that guy, and I think, and now, then I was so sad. Now I'm kind of like, whatever, dude. I'm so glad because I think it would have been a disaster if we had actually had a long-term relationship looking back and with the benefit of hindsight. I have asthma everywhere. Altitude does help. It does, Cheryl. But the problem with the altitude is it can't be too high. If it's too high, then I start wheezing. Coppet was way up in the mountains to the point where it took me about 6 weeks to get used to breathing less oxygen in the air. I was walking around going, oh my God, I can't walk. I can't think. It was really pretty, it was pretty intense. It was pretty intense. Cheryl, it's a great song. It's the one song I can't listen to anymore because I think about that guy, but it's okay now because I realize what a disaster it would have been had I had a long-term relationship, maybe marriage. We were just too different. We were always chalk and cheese, and it was never going to work. And you can't help with the heart can't help what the heart wants, and the heart wanted him, and it was just never going to happen. I'm way in a better place than I would have been had I been with him. So the other thing I wanted to talk about today, besides Pearl Meatloaf, one last thing about Meatloaf. Did anybody see him on Donald Trump's Celebrity Apprentice? Now that was an amusing season of Celebrity Apprentice, the one time that Meatloaf was on. On YouTube, I'm sure they have clips of it. He had this tantrum on camera. He was just like having this total meltdown over art supplies. He accused Gary Busey of stealing his art supplies that he had gotten for this task they had to. And I remember at the time thinking, that's pretty weird. And Busey himself was a little weird. So I actually kind of like Busey. He's kind of left of center, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with weird. I love weird. But Meatloaf went ham on Gary Busey, and he had some kind of ups and downs on the team, but it was interesting to watch. Cheryl, the show is kind of silly. I got to say that it is pretty silly in its own way because they have like a short period of time to do all these tasks. They're shoving them in. They're shouting directions. I was interested to read Penn Jillette's book where he talked about being on The Apprentice. He talked about being on the Celebrity Apprentice and how bad it was, and how after a while, when they have cameras on you 24/7 hours a day, and there is unlimited booze and short deadlines, that people start having ego depletion. That's what he called it, ego depletion, where you just stop giving an F and you stop being able to control your mask. The mask slips off and the real you comes out and you're utterly exhausted. And I've seen that happen on that show, the point where everybody starts to lose their minds and freak out. It's always interesting. It's an interesting format. Small Town Jewel, I thought about that. I would not be living in paradise with that other person. I've kept up with him through the years, through friends of friends of a friend, and he's currently single. Divorced I don't know, have any wife. Living in a fire ranger shed, way up on the stilts, looking to make sure there's not fires in the pine woods or whatever, which is what he used to say he was going to do anyway. So more power to you, dude. So Ego depletion, yes. And you can see it, Cheryl. If you watch this show, you will see the moment that happens. And it's an interesting show. Pendulette said that the boardroom sequences were actually like 5 or 6 hours long, and people got exhausted and freaked out and weirded. And that's why you got some of the strange reactions there you got. I don't do well in those kind of competitive situations. So I can hardly imagine how it must have been to be doing that. Like I said, I'm too much contrarian. If I were to do that, I'd be fighting with everybody. It would not be a good thing. And I'd probably be hitting the tequila, even though tequila is no good for me. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was Bossy and I were having this awesome conversation earlier about people undergoing recovery from spiritual abuse. Spiritual A, I guess we're going to have to say. And I just started, oh my God, he works with KJ types. I just started talking about our conversation earlier where we were talking about safe people and unsafe people for people who've experienced spiritual A. I don't know if YouTube will spank me for saying ABUSE, but knowing some of the rules, yes. At least he's living in a van down by the river. Oh my God. We used to have somebody we picked at all the time on a board I was on, and that's what they kept saying. They were in a van down by the river. Kind of laughed over that. Back on track. Oh, yes. Yes, yes. So a lot of people apparently are approaching another creator who has no business doing this and giving them their stories. You know me, I've written for NLQ for almost 10 years. I've worked in social work situations. I've worked for the national organization for a long time, helping people get licensed. And here's the thing. In all those years, I myself heard oodles of trauma survivors turn around and tell me their stories. And it's good and important for them to get their stories out. I like that. The problem is, you just don't do it. Classic SNL sketch. Yeah. You just don't do that with people who aren't trained or at least has some empathy going on. There's all these second generation survivors of evangelicalism from the different strains, not just IBLP, ATI, but also for like independent fundamentalist Baptist, the new independent fundamentalist Baptist, regular Baptist. There's some kids that walk away with things. AOG, Assemblies of God. People who went to Jerry Falwell's church and later his college. There are more organizations and ministries you can shake a stick at that people come out of with broken hearts, with complex PTSD. And that doesn't need to be going for somebody who doesn't know what the hell they're doing. If you're talking to someone who has no training whatsoever and you're trauma dumping, and I'm not saying trauma dumping in a negative way because it's something that needs to happen. When you've been through that, sometimes you just need to talk to somebody who's going to be a sympathetic, non-judgmental ear. And like I was saying a couple of weeks ago, that's what Stephen's ministry is too. So Stephen's ministry people are trained to listen to this, to be able to understand and to say, I hear what you're saying. I think what you're saying is this, and you said that it makes you feel X, Y, and Z. The most important thing you can do if you're dealing with somebody who is trauma dumping on you, there's got to be a better phrase for that. Unloading, I don't know. But the best thing you can do is just mirror back to them what they've said to you, because it's going to help them find their own way out of it. It's going to help them heal. They're going to feel like somebody hears them. Somebody hears, understands, and takes it in. I'm not sure with this other creator that's what's happening at all, because as far as I know, she doesn't have any training whatsoever in anything remotely the same like that. So it makes me kind of fearful for her, especially with the second gen people, because the second gen, the young adults, they have a unique set of problems that people in my age group don't entirely understand. So it is better that they go to someone younger who has more understanding of that and more of a similar background. But it's not okay to do that to somebody who is just a trauma vampire and they're just taking the trauma that you're giving them. They're feeding themselves on it and they're using it for content eventually. That is never good. And I've seen so much go down in the second generation movement for quite some time now. I've seen everybody fighting. I've seen one person take an organization away from a friend of mine who's founded the organization. It's just a hard thing to be living through those things. And when people contact me with this, I usually try to refer them back to their local mental health counseling because that's really going to be the best thing. There are people that specialize in this now. She's thinking she can use this as content, not how can I help this person? What can I do to help them now in their future? No, it's how can this help me? Help me. Bossy, exactly. Java man, you're right. You are absolutely right. Bermuda's Triangle. Hey, I'm glad you finally caught alive. Hey, Brenda Lee. So, yes, that's what I'm talking about. And I don't think she's helping people by doing this. You know, I stopped writing about this over a year ago. So, because of the asthma and the other stuff with my health. And here's the thing. It's necessary to have somebody hear your story. It really is. It's a good way to start the healing process. But it's not content. And I fear for her doing that because it's a hard road to take that in all the time and not have it affect you, affect you personally. And that's one of the reasons why I've had very strict boundaries in place. I don't always answer every single PM because I get a lot of them. I get a lot of emails. And I'm just busy. I'm a busy person. It's creepy how she smiles about these things when she's covering them. Java man, it is. I think that there's something going on there. That's why I started calling her a trauma vampire. Because if you act like this is giving you joyfully available for content, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to come up with a t-shirt. I have started working on getting some t-shirts together for one of these online t-shirt shops because there are crazy sayings that my friends and I say all the time that would, like Cindy Kunzman and Ari saying, he's no Weird Al, because we both think Weird Al is attractive because his brain is so big and he's so smart. And so I'm going to have to do something with joyfully available and poking fun, joyfully available for trauma dumping or something fun and silly. So if you need to see someone, most communities in the U.S. do have some sort of therapy thing in place. Most of them do. You can look up your community resources. Where we were, it was a Rappahannock mental health counseling service, I think it was, that was multi-county, but they had services for pretty much anyone. Trauma is bad enough without trusting someone with the pain only to have them load an emotion pain and shoot you later. Cheryl, I was thinking about that too because I had a situation with someone in my real life that is, it's pretty clear they have something going on. And it's very similar to what I see going on here. They constantly blame everybody else. Some of the grievances are just pretty ridiculous, I always thought. And this person is not getting invited to my daughter's wedding. We've already had that conversation. It's never going to take place. Just the way she poked fun at Michelle Duggar, thought it applied. Yes, definitely it applied. She has milked the Duggar train dry and now needs new content. The show is canceled and Josh has been convicted. People are moving on. People should move on. And the fact that the Bates have been canceled too, I think that maybe it's getting out how that type of evangelicalism is pretty toxic. And people are waking up to that and saying no, maybe contacting TLC and some of the other channels and saying, we don't want to see this anymore. This is just not necessary for anyone. So go to counseling, not a YouTube creator to get actual counseling that will help you and benefit you every day in your daily life. I'm going to leave you with a quote that I pulled up yesterday off a friend's Twitter. That when I read this, we're talking about mirroring. Okay, I'm done. Yeah, mirroring. What did KJ say Anna blamed Carlin Bates Stewart about with Josh? Downloading the CP. She said it was Carlin Bates. It was not Josh. But we've seen her blame a lot of people. She blamed even Joe Biden, and Joe Biden wasn't even president when the investigation started. So it's like, how are you justifying that? Duckers were trying to normalize this as a superior way to live. We have found that it is anything but. Java man, I had a problem with them doing that from day one. They came along just as I was getting out of my old toxic church. And I would watch their show and just weep piteously, knowing what a lie it was. And seeing them develop their spin, seeing them, they change everything about what they do was just pretty sickening. I just couldn't take it. It was. And when I did some digging and I found out that Josh was suing Department of Human Services, I think it was, don't quote me on that, in Arkansas for something to do with what he did with his sisters and the police report and all that. He was suing them and was in court a day that TLC was there filming. So TLC must have known what was going on and were complicit in shutting it down and being quiet. I think that TLC, if they'd have been honest and showed that, it might have been a whole different story. Maybe Josh would have gotten the help he needs. Take what seriously? Oh, yeah. I know. No one can take that seriously. Anna is in a pretty desperate state of mind, if I had to guess right now, knowing Quiverful. She is in that point where she's blaming everybody else for what her husband did and can't admit he did it. I said in my old, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, in my old church, my old Quiverful church, we had a lady in a very similar circumstance, except that he was also filming CP with his daughter, his prepubescent daughter. So she lost custody of the oldest child, and he went to jail, and she was supportive of him for a long time. He was suing them. That was somebody else he was suing for releasing the police report. This was pre-release. I knew there was some lawsuit going on. I didn't know what it was. So Bermuda, Michelle is like a carbon copy of a lady I knew well and Quiverful. But back to my friend that her husband was doing the same things that Josh did and worse. It took about 4 or 5 years before the wife was able to admit that maybe her husband was guilty. Maybe he did harm the daughter. And it took a few more years with the support of the church members before she would consider divorcing him. Because in Quiverful, you're told whatever your husband wants to do is fine. You're not responsible for his sins while blaming you for his sins. So you can't win. Whatever you do is going to be, and you got to realize that Anna was raised this way too. This is Anna's normal. So to ever come out of it, it's going to take time and intention. And I don't think that's ever going to happen with her. I think she's probably always going to, 5 or 6 years minimum, I think, before she starts to think. I started to watch 19 Kids and Counting when I was out of work for a few months when my back issue started in July 2014. So I was on lots of pain meds, which probably led me to making the bad decision to binge watch. Tough man, it's not only she had problems with lack of support, she has to be mother and father to those children. They have that pile of children. She's going to have to provide for them. She's going to have to be their emotional support, both as mother and father. And I can tell you, having been a single mother for a while, that is an incredibly hard thing to do if you're used to having a partner. And if you're part of that group and you're so used to having a partner that you that you can't do things. Like I was saying, I have a girlfriend here is going through a divorce who is raised in a preacher's family, was divorced, like I'm just married 36, 37 years, and doesn't know how to check the oil in her car. Anna's going to have to do the same thing. She's going to have to learn a lot of gendered tasks that are gendered in that different group. And it's stupid because there are some basic things in this world everyone should learn. But in these places of extreme gender roles, they don't teach this. You have to pick up when disaster strikes. Not only do you have to do all these things and be all these things, you have to try and make up for your own lack and what you can do. And it takes a while to change that thought pattern. Anna needs therapy, yes. I watched a video of Dave and Priscilla Waller talk about the birth of their new baby the other night. My goodness, she and Anna are literally the same person. Yes, Bozzy, except that I think that Priscilla is a little slow, I want to say. At least that's what I've heard and I've seen. I just think she is a little bit there. David Waller is a piece of work. I'm just going to say that. That whole pecan stealing incident was one of the weirdest things, and they didn't much like being called out on that. They deleted that off their blog entirely after it was pointed out that gleaning anything in somebody else's farm where they're raising things for money uninvited is trespassing and theft. It is. There's no gleaning in it, just joining. Her JD, ha, ha. Saints rock it all. Well, I don't know. I talked about him and the entire family way before she even came along anywhere in any community. You can look back at No Longer Quivering at Pathos, where it's still up, and trace back the first moments we started talking about the Duggars. Was very quickly. We got married in borderline IBLP. Husband was controlling about money, etc. Turned me into a child. He had a massive stroke in 2020, February, and I had to learn the finances, etc. I have since done a refi, etc. It was crushing, but I learned it is crushing. That's what I'm afraid for Anna. I don't know if she's made out of the sterner stuff that it takes to overcome that. My first divorce was crushing because my first husband liked to infantile me, make me like a child. Didn't want to let me have any money, didn't want to let me work, didn't want to let me out of sight. And he was quite controlling. So I came out of that with some serious catching up to do I had to do. But I was determined. Her high-pitched voice is something else. The new guy from 90 Day Fiancé is from some fringe Baptist religion. I wonder if it's IBLP. I don't know, Bossy. I'm going to have to go back and take a look at that. Lately, I've just been binging on the Righteous Gemstones because there's so much to unpack and pick there. And that's why I started doing Thursdays where I say, let's look at something very nasty pulled out of that. Oh, I'm going to have to look at 90 Day Fiancé too now. I got my daughter hooked on Love After Lockup, now Love During Lockup. What do you think about that crazy Max? I've started watching that show and going, my goodness. And the women they've gotten this time are a whole different spectrum of weird. I can just say that. And Max got his rear end handed to him on Reddit. It was pretty funny to watch. His first time on the show is from past Sunday. I'll be able to find it then and watch it and kind of figure it out. Be interesting if KJ to do one of her videos in Spanish, especially since she's a Spanish major. Muy divertido. Muy, yeah, my Spanish is kind of up and down. I can say "cuánto cuesta," "how are you," various like canned phrases, but I can't hold long conversations. But I don't hold a degree in Spanish either. I wish she would do her videos in Spanish. I would actually maybe watch because I do try to do things that pick up my Spanish, and it would be interesante. I think that's what they were saying. It would be interesting. Bossy, you have to. It's the craziest version yet. They have this guy Max who lives in the Washington D.C. area, like I did. Max is a paid escort. He says he only works for women. I don't believe it. He's got an OnlyFans. He admitted on Reddit that he purposely went on Love After Lockup. That's why he started writing a woman in jail so that he could go on there and promote his OnlyFans and his, I guess, male prostitution service. So he is something else, and he gives me Patrick Bateman, American Psycho vibes. I'm just going to come right out and say it. Oh, Bossy, is he? He's from Prince George's. My daughter moved to Prince George's County. I don't know if this guy is actually in DC proper or if he's in Northern Virginia or if he's in Maryland. There's a crazy one from Maryland, though. There's a crazy lady who went to a tarot card reader, and the tarot card reader said, and I heard, you should move to Ohio. The cards are saying move to Ohio. That's not at all how the cards work. Check out King of the Hill episode. We'll pay your Spanish to the Mexican court. That was hilarious. I'm definitely going to have to look that up, Java Man. Here's the thing with Spanish for me here. There are so many different dialects and versions. I'm just going to come right out and say that. I can understand the Costa Rican accent just fine. I can understand what's being said. I can usually answer back in simple phrases. But when you add in Nicaraguans and Nica accents, it's a whole different ballgame. There's times I have to look at them and go, repite? Repeat, please. Repite, por favor. Repite. Say it again, please, because I don't get it. And if you're talking about other parts of Central America, that's different accents. The same thing with going on down to South America, different accents, different dialects, different weird little words. The Wii app. I'm so spoiled, but I hate watching ads. I'm the same way. Yeah, it was oddly specific for a tarot card reading, and I thought that was really bizarre because she went out there with it, and this girl was believing her, said, "Oh my gosh, I'm the best tarot card reader ever. She told me to move to Ohio and blah blah blah." Well, the boyfriend's in Ohio. He's locked up in Ohio. And I hate to say it, he's the only man on that show that's kind of hot. Says her boyfriend. But she is somewhere in suburban Maryland, not too far from DC, somewhere in the DC Baltimore corridor. And she's got this criminal boyfriend in Ohio that she's talking to. Bossy, you should. It's pretty crazy. My hub's mom family is from Nicaragua. His dad is El Salvador. He's the first one born in America. Awesome. Awesome. And yeah, Nicaragua is in a world full of crazy right now. There's so much violence and different things happening there. It's not a real safe spot to go. I'm kind of worried for my husband. He's supposed to go there in March. He's supposed to lead a mission group to a spot in Nicaragua right off of a large municipal garbage dump. The people that make a living picking through the trash are called the trash people. So there's this big ministry there that houses, feeds, educates their children, and tries to help them have better lives. But it's kind of heartbreaking when you see the pictures of huts put together by squashed tin cans all wired together. It just breaks your heart. I think she felt this one was a keeper because it was hot. There's another one on the show they just introduced this last episode. It's a lady that seems pretty normal. She's hooked up with a guy who's involved in white supremacy, and she's not like that at all. And she hasn't discovered that yet on the show. They won the lottery in 1981 to all move to America. Bossy, that is really awesome because, as you well know, they're not letting many of them come in now. And to me, that's the real shame of the whole border thing. It's very different here. I'm in Costa Rica. It's safe. There's the people are pretty well cared for here. Nicaragua, violence, powerful dictator. They don't recommend Americans even go because there are incidents there all the time. Then you've got El Salvador, which is overrun with gangs and drugs. You have places like Guatemala, extreme poverty. So you have a lot of people from Central America who are fleeing poverty. They're fleeing with their lives. They're fleeing people who are threatening to kill them. And they're being turned away. I would like to see the U.S. come up with a better plan than that. Sending people back who are in actual fear of their lives or for starving to death is just not a good thing at all. Do we have to let them all in? No, but we do need to help them in some way. That's one thing I like about Biden, even though I'm kind of about him in every other way. He is talking about reaching out and having the U.S. give aid to these different countries like Nicaragua to help their people, specifically to feed them, to give them medical care, to house them, to prevent violence. Because, oh, and I got to tell you something here that you're not going to see any guidebook of Costa Rica. U.S. drug enforcement people are here everywhere. They're all over the seas. They're looking for it. They're working in conjunction with many of the Central American countries. So that's some of your tax dollars at work. Oh, wow. I read about that chick on Reddit, the white supremacy guy who's tattoos. Bossy, that the Reddit subreddit for life during lockup is my jam. Almost everybody to a person hates Max, and Max came on there to do an Ask Me Anything and was just so incredibly obnoxious. And if you question him at all, or you said, "Yeah, I think you're an idiot," he's like, "Okay, boomer." He was very just disrespectful and gross and was saying things that I'm really shocked that Sharp Entertainment didn't just pull his slots because they really spanked, who was it? What was that guy's name? Clint. Remember Clint and Tracy? His goddess, the motherfucking crack lady? They booted him from the program for running his mouth about things that the NDA covered. So this guy was saying all kinds of stuff like, well, I'm dating 5 different inmates at once, and I started doing this just so that I could be on the show, blah, blah, blah. This is my roommate I have sex with every now and then, and we share the same bedroom. It's just like so much weird. So much weird. It's still recorded under Love After Lockup. That's how they are listing on a lot of the streaming places. It says Love During Lockup, Season 3, Episode 61. Yep, that's how they have it listed. It's kind of strange. Tracy did die. That was tragic, I thought. I always kind of liked Tracy, even though she was clearly struggling with mental and drugs. I don't think there was actually a mean bone in her body. She was just wild. She was a wild woman. There's some to How to Date an Inmate. Bossy, that's the one I haven't seen because I have it blocked here in Costa Rica on every streaming service. It's like a 2-hour special starring Brittany, Marcelino and Brittany, and starring Deontay, the guy who thought that Nicole was sending him brainwaves that she wanted to be rescued at her own wedding. That guy. Um, it's on some of the streaming services here. There is a pen pal service where you can sign up for inmates, including ones on death row. Java Man, I've looked at that because I've been watching the show, and some of them said, "Oh, I met my fiance on writeaninmate.com." So I've gone in there to look and said, we may have to do that. I look at that going, I don't see anybody there that would be compelling to write to at all. Not that I was looking to write to somebody, because hell no, I'm not doing what those women did. But I did want to see what that step was like, what was available. So I have to laugh because these guys, I mean, almost all of these people that are in prison are using these people as tricks. They're trying to get money out of them. Wow, this is a weird ramble. I never meant to be talking about love after lockup today. That was not on my list, love during lockup. But here we are. We're talking about weirdness today. This is the weird stream. Yeah, looked at them for a giggle. Same here, for a giggle, because it's so weird. And you start reading some of the descriptions, and they're just downright comical how they're describing themselves. With the ones on death row, don't expect a response after the special day. Maybe from the other side. So there's that. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go. I got to do a nebulizer treatment. I can feel my voice going again. Still dealing with this stupid asthma. I did want to read this quote before I leave. I thought this was so profound that I saw it the other day on somebody's Twitter. Many Christians who believe they're being persecuted for righteousness don't realize that they're relationally toxic and are just experiencing other people's healthy boundaries. That's by Jeff Cannell from Central Vineyard Church. I think there's a lot to be said for that quote. That quote, okay. Hey, Pink Nana and Janine. That quote kind of encapsulates it all. I haven't really thought about that. I do know there are a lot of people that when they get religious pushback are going to automatically say that Satan is torturing them. It's not always that. Sometimes it's this. Sometimes it is the healthy boundaries of other people. And really, that's all I'm talking about today is healthy boundaries, how to have them, what we should be having boundaries over, stuff like the trauma, things like a certain creator who likes to take content. Have your boundaries and stick to them. And that's why a lot of us would never do well on love after lockup, love during lockup. It's just silly. Perspective matters. You were exactly right. Can we write that up and send it to Jill? Oh, Jill Rodriguez. I wasn't actually thinking about Jill when I read that. I was thinking more of Nancy Campbell's, the Debbie Pearls, the transformed wife, maybe even, because she keeps claiming that everybody is after her. And they're saying all these things because they hate her guts, because they're satanic. No, we just know what BS sounds like when it's spilling from somebody's mouth. We know what oppression looks like. We know what abuse looks like. And most of us, a lot of us now have much healthier boundaries, and we're not going to put up with that. Janine, it took me a long time to develop them, and I'm still in the process. I'm still working on it. Last night we were out at Sharky's, and after I finished my story, it's an outdoor kind of restaurant. We're sitting there having, I think I had fried avocado. And a dear friend I haven't seen in a long time stumbles up, and it's obvious he's had a little bit too much to drink. We sat there with him and talked to him while he drank even more, and it was pretty high from drinking. Whipped out the cigarettes and started lighting it. Now, he's my friend. I'm not going to say, oh my God, get that away from me like I normally would with people, but I don't know. So it's kind of like just easing away from him and getting in the no smoke zone. So I'm going to have to think about what that boundary looks like and how I should have said something to him about it. He did finally realize that I was uncomfortable and went outside to finish. So that was something. I didn't really get much smoke. There's a new one on Instagram, Jimmy Snow Covered. I'll send you the name on Twitter when I remember it. Bossy, that would be awesome. There are so many of these. Does anybody remember The Wife with a Purpose, Ayla Stewart? I don't know if any of you here remember her. She has pulled down most of her content now, but she was all over the internet like a rash, like a pair of wet panties. It was just crazy. Smokers take that so personally. I know, and he's my friend. I don't want to hurt his feelings. And so the wife with a purpose. I keep wanting to do wife with a porpoise now. All of her content was white supremacy linked. She was scheduled to speak at the Charlottesville rally that went so haywire and Heather Hires lost her life. She was supposed to have spoke at that. So she was always talking about European identity, white blood, having as many babies as you can to outbreed the black and the brown people, and wrapping it all up in Christianity, which is utterly repulsive. That's not the main message of Christ. It's not have white babies because the blacks and the grays and the oranges and the greens and the purples and are breeding. That is not it. Yeah. So she was very gross, but she had to take everything down because she was getting death threats for some of the things she was saying, and some of them were so horrible that I don't know how she didn't get death threats. It was just a horrible, horrible thing. And every time one of these cultural enforcers goes down, 10 spring up to take their place. They all start fighting over the cultural enforcer crown to be the bestest wife of all time. Agendas matter. Yep, they do. They really do. Anyway, I'm going to go. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for interacting. You've made a dull day a little bit better. This morning I had to go out to the bank, so I'm kind of late getting online, but here we are. Have a great day. I got to get my camera to quit shaking.